Well, I teased this last week, so I'm gonna do it. So this is a aluminum Slant Six, and we're gonna do a teardown on it. Evan's a little worried about having one bolt in the cast aluminum. Not really aluminum, it's more aluminum oxide, but yeah. That should be fine. Three of us basically manhandle this in my truck on this weekend. And up we go. We're gonna try to put this on the engine stand and then spin it over, although it's not really coming up the way we want it to. All right, on the engine stand, and luckily this isn't as heavy as a big block, so it spins over pretty easy. I'm gonna do as much research and figure out what's going on with this, because I don't really know much about these, so we're gonna learn together. Kevin's gonna blow off 30 years of dust and raccoon poop. It was under a tarp at the dude's house. Well, it's on the run stand, and nobody died. The fact that the ports are open is not great. Hopefully no rodents crawled in there. These are these aluminum Slant Sixes do have some issues, and yeah, if water got in them or mice or something, it's not great. Looks like there's a broken off stud in the head. These are unique heads actually, so we'll have to probably pull those out because these heads are not easy to find. Not ideal. Just want to do a little background on the Slant Six motor. So in the mid 50s, you know, Chrysler still had their Flathead 6 that was basically developed in 1932. It was majorly antiquated at the time, and they kind of knew they had to step up their game and come up with a 6-cylinder. And then at the same time, you know, the VW Bug was coming into the country. You know, all the Renaults, the foreign imports, and the you know, domestic companies didn't really have anything. I mean, Rambler had something, Studebaker kind of had a small something, but the big three really didn't. And kind of the way it worked back then is, you know, they kind of all moved in sync. You know, one heard about one and then they would develop it. You know, Ford came up with the Falcon, Chevy came up with a very radical Corvair, and of course they were doing all aluminum on that, which Chrysler heard about, and that's what they wanted to do as well. And then, you know, Chrysler came up with the Valiant program. And honestly, the Valiant program was a little bit of a mess branding wise. You know, companies were having a hard time with branding around that time. And, you know, Ford came out with the Edsel, which was a complete disaster. But when Mopar came out with the Valiant, it was its own make. It was not a Plymouth Valiant in 1960. It was just a Valiant. It was not a Plymouth, which is interesting. You can find a lot of, obviously I'm a sign guy, I collect a lot of signs and stuff. There's a lot of one-year-only Valiant stuff out there that you can see that, you know, that's because it was his own make in 1960 only. This is part of my porcelain wall here, and that's a Valiant authorized service. Again, 1 year only sign there. And then you see a lot of these around too. So they actually had a separate Valiant sign. There's actually an NOS plastic sign I got. I have the other side too. It's over in the other shop. I'm ready to get this hung up one of these days. Yeah, I have a lot of signs that are hung up right now. So yeah, to get back to where we're going here. So they developed this 6-cylinder for the Valiant, and it was a new compact. And, you know, Chrysler was doing a ton of work at the time to try to lighten their cars up. You know, there's a lot of little stuff they did that really added up to huge weight savings. You know, the 727 went aluminum in 62. You know, that saved like, I think it was 30 or 40 pounds a car. You know, water pumps were in aluminum. You know, there was a lot of stuff they were putting on these things to help save weight. And of course, Chrysler with their compact car wanted an aluminum motor. So they started developing this. And in 1960, all that was available was the 170 Slant Six in the Valiant. That's all they had. And then they were developing the 225 at the same time. They were gonna make them all, the 170 was supposed to be aluminum, and the 225 was also supposed to be aluminum. And then the process with these aluminum ones is they were supposed to be cheaper because they had to pay a bunch for tooling, and these were actually die cast. So they were injected aluminum into a mold, whereas the steel ones they had to make in a cast mold. And the sand casting process was they would put sand in it, then they had to like pour the molten iron in, and then they had to shake all the sand out. So it would take them like, I think it was like half hour per motor to make them. And whereas with the aluminum ones, they could just punch them out real quick, but the tooling was really expensive. They had to have a machine that was 2,000 tons to make these things. And the production tolerances had to be, you know, way better than the iron ones. Because with the aluminum, these actually have a floating cylinder in here, which I'll show you later once we get this thing apart. It was a very radical design for the time. When they were making these cast iron, it was kind of an afterthought. Like they weren't ever planning on making these in cast iron. They were just kind of had, in case we have some problems with the aluminum ones, we'll do it with that. Well, during production, you know, the first test ones came out in like 58. And unfortunately, the aluminum ones, they were just having a lot of quality issues. They had to throw away a ton of these motors as they were making them. They just didn't work that well. So they decided, you know, instead of scrapping everything, to just make them in cast iron for 1960. So the Valiant's got 170s in 1960. And then the full-size cars got 225s as optional as the base motors. They got rid of the Flathead 6 in 1960, and then the full-size cars had the 225, and the smaller cars had the 170. But they still had this aluminum tooling around, and they still liked the idea of it. So what they ended up doing is in 1861, they made it optional on the compact cars. I've been trying to figure out what some of these numbers mean, and I'm really not sure. I was told, well, the guy Evan got this from said it was a later replacement motor, but I'm really not sure. But if anybody knows what these numbers mean, I would love to hear it, because I've been trying to do some research online and haven't been able to figure anything out. I know there's a number here, and one thing I read was that they numbered them however many they made. So the obviously these were optional in 61, and they were optional in 62, and that was it. It was 2 years only. And from the research I could find, these were only in the compact cars. So the new Dodge Lancer came out in 1961, and then the Valiant was only Valiant in 1960. Then 61, you know, it became the Plymouth Valiant. They got rid of the Valiant brand because it didn't really work. And then the Lancer came out. These were optional in 61, 62. And they actually made 50,000 of these blocks, which is pretty crazy. I didn't realize they made that many. But someone was saying that they are numbered. So I don't know if that's the 3,468th motor. I'm not sure what the A means. I'm gonna have to do some more research on that. And if anybody knows, please mention it in the comments, because I'm really not sure what the deal is. Remember, when you're brushing, use a brass brush. It doesn't hurt the aluminum, it just takes the oxidation off. A couple easy ways to spot these. First off, they have this little logo on them. And of course, the motor's sitting over that way, so you can see it. You can see all this, but it says casting number 2121. Mopar Chrysler Corporation, with that super cool forward look logo, which is kind of interesting because that went away in 61, but they already had the casting. They weren't going to redo that. So these, the heads are, there was, I think, 3 different versions of these heads. There was an earlier one that was marked special. So they had more accurate casting, because the cylinder and the head had to be exactly in the middle of the bores, because as you'll see when we take this apart, the head gasket is critical on these. And all these parts are unique to this motor. The head bolts are unique, the main caps are unique, the end rail seals are unique. And that's the reason why Evan bought this. So even though this is really corroded, we're not sure if it's savable or not, but at least he can use all the parts for his other motors he has. He has several other bare blocks. So the goal is to build one good one out of all of this, basically. Another thing you noticed here is there's no, well, people don't like this term, but freeze plugs on this. The main reason for freeze plugs is when, you know, the cast iron blocks were poured, they had to get all the sand out when they sand cast them. Well, on this, it was die injection molded, so they didn't have to do that. So, but that's something real easy to look for in an aluminum block. If you're in a wrecking yard, it's all painted. Not that you can find these much anymore, but there's no core holes on the side, and then it has that little logo on there right there. Those of you who've been watching our channel for a while know that we love sharing some of the old paperwork we have with you. I thought this was a perfect opportunity to do this. First of all, let's just bask in the magnificence of the design. This is back when they made stuff look good on paper, and this just looks amazing. It has the Ford look logo up on the right, which is a little bit different. This is a 1962 Plymouth Valiant, so it's basically the last year of the Ford look. And even 62 is a little debatable. 61 is definitely the last year of the Ford look. 62 is kind of a transition year between that and the, you know, the kind of the regular Pentastar in 63. So this is pretty cool. This is from a dealer, Duarte and Whitting in Martinez, California. We have all the records from this dealer. So if anybody has a car that you know was built there, or sorry, not built there, sold there, we probably have your paperwork. We've already reunited a couple cars with the paperwork here, but I thought this was really interesting, so I really wanted to show this. I don't even want to explain to you how long it took me to find this up in my attic. I've got I have some of this stuff pretty well organized. This is one I did not, and it was kind of buried underneath a bunch of signs up in my attic. But yeah, this is a very early, they call it Maroni label, or window sticker is the slang term for it. Manufacturer suggested retail price label. This was a law that was passed in the U.S. in 1958, and I believe 1960 was the first year they had to post them on cars. But every new car that had under a 8,500 pound gross vehicle weight had to produce one of these stickers. It was basically just to keep dealers from ripping people off, because dealers would just kind of make up prices on this stuff, and people weren't very informed. The internet wasn't around back then. You could just go online and see what all the prices were supposed to be on stuff. So they actually had to post a label with all the prices from the factory. One thing I think is really interesting is the VIN's actually handwritten on here. So this was a very early car. So I'm thinking maybe because it was so early, maybe that's why they did that, or if that's what they did on all 62s. I'm not actually sure about that, but it was built at the Los Angeles plant. It's WW1, which is white. 133 is the first, that's the sales code. So the first letter of the VIN, second letter of the VIN. This was a Valiant 200 four-door sedan. Had solid paint style. Has a custom appearance access group, which I'll show you what that was in a minute here. Had the torque flight transmission. Push button radio with antenna. I wonder if they sold that without antenna. Probably not. A heater with defroster, hot water. That was optional. That was not standard at the time, which is, not pretty much everything was optional these years. Backup lights were optional. Those are a nice option, so you don't run over people. Tinted windshield only, $14. And what we're here for, the 225 cubic inch engine, $47.35. So the standard motor on a 1962 Valiant was the 170 Slant Six, which is the same as 225, except the deck is 1 inch lower, obviously less cubic inches. But here, when it's the 225, the optional motor, that means it's the aluminum motor. And when I was looking at this window sticker, I wasn't sure about that, but I'm going to show you the order form here in a second that shows you that. It had the closed crankcase vent system. That was the California emissions. That was standard. Actual ratio was 293, which was no charge. Antifreeze. They even charge you for antifreeze in 62, which is crazy. So they would actually ship these things out with just water in them. Yeah, $3.65. All vinyl trim was $19.95, and the destination charge was $122. And the MSRP for the car was $2,672.35. Steal of a deal. That came off. Okay, so let me show you the invoices here. So I have two different invoices here. So this is Chrysler Motors Corporation Valiant. Has pretty much, similar information to the window sticker, except this was the internal dealer version. This stuff's pretty similar to the window sticker. It's just the internal Chrysler number on here. Tentative billing, subject to later adjustment. This was a real early build car, so they hadn't set prices yet. One thing I did find interesting on here, so they have the weights on here. And that was important for shipping. So the weight of the car was 2,520 pounds, 2 pounds for the custom appearance group, 26 pounds for the torque flight, 7 pounds for the heater. Oh, sorry, 7 pounds for the radio, 21 pounds for the heater, 2 pounds for backup lights. They don't minus weight for the 225, which I think is really interesting. You think that they would minus weight on that. Here's another invoice here. Again, pretty similar, just a little bit different format. SPD on the car, the scheduled production date was September 18th. Again, really early in the year. The invoice date was on 9/27/61. Remember, this is a 62 Valiant, but the 62 model year production usually started in August. I don't know what it was in 62. I know what it is in 70. Not sure what it is in 62. Here's all the prices they were writing out when they were trying to do the invoice. And here's actually the factory wholesale price on this, which I always find really interesting. So the 225 engine, $47.35 MSRP. That's the holdback. And then the dealer cost was $35 on that. So they made $12.35 on that. And there's just some interesting information here. So this is basically what the dealer actually paid versus, what they charged the customer. That's how much they financed, the withholding amount, and then I think there are floor plans on there too. The floor plan that was the dealer financing basically. So floor plan is like, whenever they got the new cars in, they would they would get a loan from the bank to pay for them, and that was called a floor plan, and they would have to pay interest on that over time. Unfortunately, I can't read this handwriting, so I'm not sure what the 3620 is. I can't really read that. I don't know if that's their financing cost or what. I am really not sure about that. Okay, so now the really cool form. This is the order form. You don't see these very often. This is the actual order form from 62. So the person went in the dealer to order this stuff, and this one, since this one was an early car, it was ordered by the dealer. So Herman Duarte, he was the retail customer. So it was a dealer ordered car, but I'm sure it was ordered for dealer stock at the start of the year. So very interesting stuff on here. So the dealer code was 73. That was the San Francisco region. Dealer number was 06819. They just dropped a 0. When it starts with a 0, that means it's a very old dealer. Order number must be the order for the dealer for the year. 133's body style. Color is white. That's the trim code for the interior. And 8861. So that's when they actually ordered it. So this was probably at the dealer reveal show when they ordered it. So they would have all the new models come out at the start of the year, and then they would make their orders after they saw the new cars for the year. 329, as I mentioned earlier, custom appearance package. So it came with white wall tires, deluxe hubcaps, safety padded instrument panel, and carpeting. Because, fancy. We're fancy here. Automatic 3-speed, the radio, the heater right here. Here's a bunch of the other options here. Luggage rack was on a wagon only. Seatbelts, we don't need seatbelts. Why would we need seatbelts? It's 1962. No padded safety pad because that was included in the other one. Carpet was included in the other option. The backup lights right here. And the thing I find most interesting on here is the aluminum Slant 6. So right here. So when I first saw the window sticker, I wasn't sure if it was the aluminum one. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a super expert on 62 Plymouths, but right here it says engine, Super 225 aluminum in the option right there. So basically any Valiant got a 170 unless you ordered the 225 aluminum. So every 225 in a 62 Valiant or Lancer would be the aluminum one. And if you didn't order the aluminum one, you got a 170. But I just think that's really interesting right there. Tinted windshield. California, it's always nice to have that. California emissions, that was required to be sold in California. The standard rear axle, which was, $293, which most automatic cars, that's what they got. But yeah, the one to take away here is the engine, Super 25 aluminum, Slant 6. Really, really cool. I've honestly, we're going over this right now. I've never actually seen a 62 invoice before. I know I've got a bunch of these up in the attic, but these are, to me, these are really, really interesting and tells a huge story of the aluminum Slant 6 225, how you ordered it and how much it cost. So as some of you have probably already watched, Jamie from Dead Dodge Garage is doing a video on this too, but mostly just the teardown. So I'm going to spare you the details of the 100% teardown. I'll just do a few videos to tear this apart and then kind of do an autopsy once it's all apart. This is not ideal. So I just got the alignment done on that and got back, and Evan and Jamie got most of this block together. Honestly, apart, whatever. They all know what I meant. Actually looks better than I thought it would after seeing the head. I mean, the cam's super rusty, but I've definitely seen worse. So yeah, when you're taking bolts out of aluminum, you have to be extra careful not to break them inside. Also, it smells like fire here. I wonder why. Yeah, that head's seen some stuff. This whole process is requiring a lot of heat. They've got 3 of the pistons out. 2 are still pretty stock, 1 is moving. So you want to go slow with this because you can crack a cylinder liner if you're not really careful and take your time with this. Fire!
Is it rusted in the back main?
The main bearings have seen better days.
Okay, now I'll try again. There we go.
It's trying to come out.
Nice.
It's a heavy bit. Out she goes. Wow. Yeah, when rust drops off the back of the crank, it's not a great sign. Jamie got all the wrist pins to move, which is nice. Yeah, that one takes some effort. There you go, Evan. Thank you.
Whee!
Oh, that one came out.
Tasty. Oh, the chunks.
Get this one.
Good. Slightly more stubborn on that one. Oh,
Come on, baby. Come on.
Like the chunks of rust.
Hey, almost there.
Yep.
Almost there. It's coming out.
Done.
Whee! That's what that cylinder looks like. Apparently you can go 40 over on these sleeves, and that's it. That's all the material that's left on them. Yeah, the oil pump drive is being fairly stubborn. It's going though.
Now.
Now it is.
One forever later.
Yeah, the smell is awful. Not great. I can taste it.
Nothing to see here, folks.
I want a hamburger. Bang, bang, bang. So I haven't shown you the top part of the block. So this is what makes these so unique. I mean, other than the fact that they're aluminum, but they actually have floating cylinders, and it was crucial on these things to change your coolant at least twice a year and make sure you put in anti-knot corrode stuff in.
Very technical term there.
Thank you. This is what people subscribe to me for. But yeah, it's a really cool design. So, but the problem is as I said earlier, you have to have the heads have to be machined exactly right, and these things had serious head gasket problems because really no other Mopar engine from this era had this design. It was a flat deck with a head gasket. On this, it's just floating cylinders. So they got 4 of the 6 cylinders out. They're going to try to go, since these are both near the bottom of the stroke, they're going to try to go down to get them loose and try to get them out. The saddle's in the way, but I think Jamie just said the saddle might come out.
Well, yeah, the upper saddles come loose, so I think with that out of the way, we'll be good.
Okay. It's a good time when the paper towel's black after you wipe off your beard. All right, great success. All the pistons are out. Block is stripped, and it looks like a savable block. After seeing what was inside the head, I am a little surprised, but I'm super happy. So we're gonna build it. When are we gonna build this, Evan?
I got a poly to build, 318 to build. It's on the list.
Okay. But I'm more excited about this one than the poly, I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Well, need to get this thing down to Johnson and see how it cleans up. The advantage of a Slant Six. You can just carry it around like a suitcase.
Aluminum Slant Six.
Aluminum Slant Six.
Words
yes.
are important. Anyway.
Are they?
Yes.
Another little good trivia on these is apparently these bumps right here, they made those on the early ones because they were talking about doing hydraulic lifters on these, but they ended up all being solid lifter motors. So apparently on the later ones, they actually deleted those for, I don't know, simplicity of the casting. I don't know why, but they actually deleted those. So you can tell this is an early one because it has the bumps in it. Well, I hope everyone learned a little about Slant Sixes. I'm pretty happy for Evan. It sounds like he got a decent core here. I mean, obviously it could have been better. This thing's still pretty oxidized, but you get this thing down in the machine shop and get it cleaned up and see what it looks like. And hopefully, we're trying to talk Evan into this. He wants to get his poly built first, but we're trying to talk him into doing this one next because this would be a really, really fun build. So this is Tom from Rocket Restorations. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you soon.